I just take total responsibility. This is where I'm at. What do I need to do today to make that change? You know, and I'm responsible for where I'm at, my success, what happens, you know? And I think that's like kind of my message to everybody today. You know, stop looking at everything outside or blaming everything outside, and just take total responsibility for where you're at right now today. And what are you going to do differently to change?
What is up, friends? Rob Sevilla here, back with a brand new Spitting Fire podcast. And all the way from Lafayette, Louisiana, I got a phenomenal kingdompreneur with us today. Miss Bianca is on the podcast. Bianca, will you say what's up to everyone just real quickly?
What's up, everybody? Super honored to be on this with you guys and be able to, you know, speak some life into some people today.
Absolutely. And I know you're going to spit some serious fire. But before we dive into that, I want to remind everybody why I interview entrepreneurs, leaders like Bianca. And that's because I believe all of you have been given an assignment by this divine creator. And for me, that's the God of the Bible. And I pray that something that we talk about today will inspire you. I don't want to just motivate you. I want to inspire you to live on purpose in such a way that first brings him glory while impacting as many lives as possible. Well, Bianca, I'm so glad that you're on the podcast today. And I always like to just start with everyone that comes on the podcast with them sharing maybe a 30,000 foot view of their story, and we'll just take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I don't think my story is really like unique. You know, I'm from Lafayette, Louisiana. I'm 32 years old. I have two small children. I have a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I mean, you know, I come from a pretty like rough childhood. I had some things kind of happen to me growing up that I feel like really affected my life. And I ended up, you know, getting into drugs and to alcohol, and I used that as my solution for a really long time. And then, you know, God intervened
Yeah.
in 2013. I just turned 21, right? And you know, I was really going down the wrong path. And if God wouldn't have saved me, I would have died. You know, I actually had a friend of mine whose dad had been sober for like 25 years,
Yeah.
and his mom actually wrote a $30,000 check for me to be able to go to treatment.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was, to me, that was like an angel from God put in my life. And it was really like the first time where, you know, somebody had took a chance on me, and somebody had actually believed in me when I didn't really even believe in myself. You know, and it was that thing that actually really changed everything for me. Because of her seeing something that I didn't even see in myself, it really, it gave me a little bit of hope and belief that, okay, maybe I can, you know, do something with my life.
Yeah.
And I ended up finding God through recovery. You know, I was raised in the church with, you know, religion, but kind of turned away from that and never really had a relationship with God. And so through recovery, you know, I ended up developing, you know, a relationship with God. But that takes time, right? And so
Sure.
that was just a start. So May 3rd of this year, I'll have 11 years sober
Yeah.
from all drugs, all
Congratulations.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, I used to kind of be maybe like not ashamed to talk about that, but you know, that's what I went through has made me the person that I am today. And
Yeah.
I used to think about like, well, God, like, why did I go through this, or why did I go through that? Why did that have to happen to me? And something that was, you know, kind of spoken into my spirit was like, because everything that I went through is something that God is going to use to help somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the case. Every person that God has put in my life for me to help, it's like there's been some sort of commonality. I've been able to use my story and my greatest test as a testimony, right? To help somebody else. And so
Sure.
I'm really grateful for that. So, kind of speed up to, I was in recovery, ended up having my first child, you know, had my second child. And probably about like 2018, my life kind of took a different turn.
Sure.
I was kind of just, working regular jobs. I felt like the Lord really wanted me to get into counseling. I wanted to be a counselor, for drug addicts and alcoholics. I ended up
Sure.
starting to work
Yeah.
at a treatment center,
Yeah.
and I was going to school. Actually, was able to get my whole master's program paid for. I was, in school to get my master's in social work. And in 2018, I lost my job,
Mm.
and I was really praying. I'm like, God, I feel like there's more. I feel
Yeah.
like there's more.
Yeah.
And so I ended up losing my job, and literally like the next day, I found out I was pregnant with my son.
Hmm.
A couple months later, my daughter's dad actually passed away
Mm.
due to addiction, and it was kind of like my life was falling apart. And but really, what God was doing is He was rearranging it so that He could
Hmm.
put it back together.
Yeah.
And I ended up, just praying. I'm like, Lord, there has to be something else out there. Like, help me to be open minded. Like, do you have a better plan for me? Because here I am, single mom, two kids,
Yeah.
living paycheck to paycheck, and so I ended up having like three different people approach me about selling insurance, and so ended up getting into the insurance industry, and really it's been very life changing.
Yeah.
It's like when you become an entrepreneur, I feel like the business that you get into, it starts to expose you, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
places within your life that you need to grow and that you need to work on, those things get exposed. And,
Yep.
through the process, as, trying as it can be, you change.
Yeah.
And so, through the process of being an entrepreneur, I have changed. My relationship with God has grown. I've changed as a mother, as a woman, as a leader, as a daughter, as a friend. And it's just I'm very grateful. So that's kind of just like a short kind
Sure.
of synopsis of kind of how I got to where I am today.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful.
Yeah, and I want to go back to a couple of things because it's interesting that you bring up. I like to articulate it this way that a lot of times people let the mess of yesterday keep them from the
Yeah.
mission that
Yeah.
God has for them today. So you bringing that up, I think, was powerful because a lot of times people get paralyzed by the past,
Yeah.
right? And they don't realize that God actually wants to do a miracle in the middle of the mess. He's the only
Yeah.
one that can take it and do something good with it. So I really loved that you brought that up. And then the other thing is, I always like to tell people that adversity is included in everyone's assignment,
Yeah.
right? We're all guaranteed to have adversity, but the way that we handle that, right, is going to ultimately determine how we're going to fulfill that assignment, right? God never
Yeah.
promised us an adversity free life, but He did promise us that He would be with us in it and through it. So I love that you bring that up. And I think I saw somewhere online, and correct me if I'm wrong. And the only reason I bring this up is because I want the people that watch this when this drops to understand that you had this messiness going on with the addiction, but then fast forward and see what God has done. And I think I saw online where, like, in 4 years, you guys had your organization or you personally had done like $1 million. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yep. Yep. So, I mean, so I was the fourth woman ever to be inducted into the Millionaires Club
Wow.
in company history. So I think that's pretty cool. To be in a industry that's pretty dominated by men.
Yeah.
to be doing that as a female. But at the end of the day, all glory goes to God,
Yeah.
because I would not be where I am today without God. And just what He has been able to do in my life, it's because I surrendered.
Yeah.
For a long time, I was running my life. I was controlling the
Mm.
show, and my best thinking and my best day got me to where I was. Which was really hopeless and broken. And when I finally surrendered and said, okay, I don't have all the answers. I don't know what I'm doing. I need help, right? Which is the hardest thing for some people to do. Like, I don't have it all figured out. I need help, and I ended up surrendering, and that's when God was able to actually come in and work in my
Yeah.
life. And I'm so happy that I was, able to surrender and do that, because
Sure.
I mean, my life looks completely different,
Yeah.
than it did, 11 years ago. And that's only by the grace of God.
Yeah, and I love that you bring that up because Bianca, my story is very messy as well. I, got a lot of mess from yesterday, and only God was able to do a miracle through that. But I want to touch on something because I talked about this several podcasts ago, where in the world it seems like we're taught to cope with everything. And please, when you watch or listen to this today, whoever, I'm not criticizing anyone when I say this, but a lot of times we're taught to cope with certain things in the world, whether it's with medications or with our certain vices, but we never truly find healing.
Hmm.
And would you touch on this real quickly? Because I believe that as we develop that relationship with Jesus, right, as we get closer to God, you've seen this in your own life, and would love for you to expound on this real quickly, isn't it interesting that we no longer have to cope with things, but we can
Yeah.
begin to find true healing through that relationship? You've seen that in your life as well, correct?
Yeah. I actually heard a pastor say it. He's like, sometimes we get so focused on like the fruit that
Mm,
we don't focus on the root, right?
yeah, that's good.
And to me, like, alcoholism and drugs was just a
Mm,
solution that I used to cover up
yeah,
the root of what was really going on.
yeah,
And when I got sober and the fall kind of cleared, I was able to start the healing process.
yeah,
And,
good.
over the last 11 years, it's not like I just like woke up one day and my life was just amazing, and
Yeah,
God did do some amazing things, but I had to partner with God, and I had my
yep,
own part to play in my healing journey. And I've done a lot of healing, inner healing, deliverance on myself, just true like inner work on me and why I was doing the things that I was doing, and just dealt with things from my past that I avoided for a very long time. And in doing that, the inside started to heal, and then my external world actually got a lot
yeah,
better.
that's
And I
good.
think so many people, do, and I did this too for a long time, just avoided
Yeah,
dealing with that inside stuff. And it's really hard to get anywhere in life, because it'll start rearing its ugly head, right, in different areas, right? Whether
yeah,
you get the career that you want or the relationship that you want, if you don't deal with that, like they say, that junk in your trunk,
yeah,
it starts coming out and affecting other areas. And it's like, I got so sick and tired of being sick and tired, and the pain of remaining the same
yeah,
outweighed the fear of changing.
yeah,
And that's when I
that's
was
good.
like, I'm willing to do something different. And it was really a blessing from God, because at some point it was like, those things that I was using, what they weren't even working anymore. Like, they had
Yeah,
stopped working. And so I had literally nothing else, no one else left. My family had kind of taken a step back for me. A lot of people detached from me, which is
mm,
was a blessing in disguise. But the only thing I had left to do was like look up, and that's when everything really, really changed.
yeah, and I believe that's a word for someone. If you're watching this today and listen or listening to this in the audio version, I love what the way John Maxwell says it. He says consistency compounds,
Yeah.
right? So if you want to change your life, look at what you're doing every single day and
Yeah.
change it.
Yeah.
Ask God for his help to help you change it. And I love that because so many people, Bianca, are waiting on God, and God is saying, hey, you're not waiting on me. I'm waiting on you to fully
Yeah.
surrender and to fully, change here. So that way we can change this life. Right. And
Yeah.
so I love that you bring it up. One thing I do want to focus on too is because you went from this years ago to being this fourth woman in the company to earn this $1 million. And I saw something or watched a podcast with you in it where it said something to the effect that you had never made like $2,000 more per month before getting into this industry. Tell me, what was one of the biggest breakthroughs mindset wise that you had to have to go from that before, 2,000 a month to the fourth woman in the company? I know it could be many things, but is there something that rises at the top that you believe you need to share today?
Yeah. So, through my recovery journey, I learned how to follow like a simple system, right?
Sure.
And do some things on a daily basis
Right.
to maintain my sobriety. And so when I got into insurance and, got into the company that I work for and, selling insurance,
Right.
there was a simple system that was in place. And they were like, okay, if you do this, 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 and this, you'll get this result,
Sure.
right? um and in also in my recovery, I always had like a mentor, like somebody that I could reach out to that had really kind of paved the way, and I really just would like model with that because they had what I
Right.
wanted, and so I would model what they did, and I started to get the same results, right? I'm very simple, like I don't try to figure everything out. I'm not that type of person. That's not how my brain
Right.
works. I like to be told what to do. So if you say, okay, Bianca, do this, you'll get this, I can do that, right? And I think that's a
Right.
probably big reason for my success. And so coming into insurance, you're right. I had never made over $2,000 in a month before, but I always felt like I always overworked and was underpaid. So I never
Mm.
had like a work ethic problem.
Sure.
I'm very dedicated. I'm a very loyal person. I will put my heart and soul into something for somebody, right? But it was never actually really myself and my own business, right? And so coming into insurance, I was like, I saw that other people, were having success. David Price, been a good friend of
Yeah.
mine for 10 plus years, saw he was having success. Had another friend of mine that was in insurance. She was having success. David actually like pulled out her check stubs and was like, hey, this is what she's depositing. And I was like,
Sure.
well, hey, if she could do it, I could do it. We
Right.
come from the same background. So
Yeah.
that's all I needed to know. Like, hey, somebody else is doing it, I could do it too. That's kind of always been like my mindset in a sense. So coming into this, it was like, okay, just tell me what I need to do. And so I
Yeah.
did little bitty simple things every day. So like I would wake up and we'd have like a morning conference call. They said, hey, be at your first house at 9, work till dark 30. I did that. Get 20 leads a week, do 15 presentations, call your manager a lot. I'm like, okay, that's simple, I could do that. And I had to really, taking on this new opportunity. I mean, I had my daughter was like 3 or 4 at the time, my son was a
Sure.
newborn. I had to sit my family down and be like, look, these are my dreams. This is where I'm trying to go. I need your help, and it was a kind of a blessing. My mom had actually kind of lost her job around the same time I did back in 2018. So she was actually able to help me a lot with my kids, which super
Right.
grateful for.
Yeah.
Um, but it was just doing those little bitty things one day at a time over a period of time that I started to see like the results. And so my first month in insurance, I think I deposited like $5,000 into my account, and I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm never really like satisfied. Like anything I do, I want
Sure.
to do to excellence.
Yeah.
And so I told David, I said, I want to be the number one agent in the country. And he was like, "Okay, well, you could probably do it. Let's figure out what we're gonna do." And we came up with a game plan. I knew how many leads I need to get, what I need to
Hmm.
do, and just having that belief in myself, and then having David believe in me. my second month in the company, I was the number one agent in the country.
Wow.
And so that's kind of been like my journey along the way with entrepreneurship and my success. Like if I see somebody has done something, instead of saying, man, like I can't do that, I say, well, man, if they can do it, I can do it. And I just try
Sure.
to figure out, well, what did they do? And then I don't just ask. I say, well, I'm gonna put that into place. I'm gonna apply it, right? Knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is even more powerful, right?
Sure.
And so that's kind of been my journey. And so doing those things consistently over the last 4 years, right? And always having my why at the forefront of why I'm doing this, um, I was able to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, and I love that because the 2,000 a month earner to the $1 million and 4 year earner had to grow a lot, right? You had to
Yes.
develop to into the person that would be a good steward of God and trusting you with that because you said
Yeah.
this earlier. As an entrepreneur, money and success is just a magnifier of what's in here.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
absolutely.
love the relationship we have with the God of the Bible because through his son Jesus, what I love about this is he works from the inside out
Yeah.
in a world that teaches us to work from the outside in.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And I'll just, be transparent with this, but
Sure.
when I got into insurance, yes, I had a relationship with God, but it wasn't like the relationship that I have
Mm,
today.
sure.
It was, I was still kind of like a baby Christian
Sure.
in a lot of ways, still spiritually, I would say immature in a lot of ways. And, granted, I went from, like I said, making $2,000 a month to making, $10,000 a month fairly quickly, and God really had to work on me because,
Yeah.
I kind of became like I would say like a workaholic. I started putting my work and my success,
Mm, yeah.
above my relationship with God. And that can easily happen, especially
Yeah.
if that kind of gets, thrown into the mix, and, you kind of you have to work that out. And, God giveth and God can taketh away. Right. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
through that process, um, and really kind of, those types of things don't really bring me fulfillment. It's
Sure.
like, you could, if you still have like that hole that's there, and God isn't filling that, you could try to
Yeah.
fill it with money and
Right.
success. And,
Yep.
and it may make you feel good for a little while,
Right.
but, over time for me, it just doesn't do it. I'm always
Yeah.
wanting more. Right. And so, my relationship with God has grown through that.
Yeah. And I love that because a lot of times we settle for just temporary happiness when God wants to give us divine fulfillment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I've been there
Absolutely.
too. Like I
Hmm.
call them lesser gods. We settle for lesser little g gods.
Yeah.
And when it's in our DNA to only find true fulfillment in the big G God.
Yeah.
Right. So I love
Yeah.
that you bring it up. And you know this because you've had a taste of money and success. And I've seen you everywhere online and social media. And that's all great. And it gives us a platform, gives you a platform to talk about God even more and to talk about what he's done in your life. But it really, at the end of the day, it's fun and it makes you happy for a moment. But I think there's so many entrepreneurs, or at least in the circles that I've ran in, that are just lacking that fulfillment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want to go back to something too because you made a statement on it, I think on a podcast where you said a lot of people give up before the miracle happens. Why do you think that is? And expound on that just a little bit more.
Um, I think that people give up too quickly because we want, like, we live in like I heard somebody say like this, we live in a microwave society with a
Sure.
crock pot kind of God, right?
Yeah.
And so, sometimes we're expecting, like I have people that, come into, my agency, and they see where I'm at, right? And granted, it took me a long time to get to where I'm at, and there was a lot of
Sure.
things that happened
Sure.
in between. And they're like, okay, I want to be there. And
Right.
because where they're starting at right now, they don't get
Yeah.
there right away. They give up instead of like committing to the process and
Mm,
doing the work that it takes to get there. They just give up because it's too
yeah.
hard. It's not happening quick enough. I'm not seeing the results. But a lot of times too, like, and I tell my agents this is like, okay, you don't know what Bianca went through in the, however many years before I got to
Sure.
senior life, like the work that I did, so
Sure.
that by the time I got this opportunity, right, to have my own business and, what
Yeah.
have you, um, I feel like I had success pretty quickly than a lot of other people, but like
Right.
I had done a lot of work up until that point, right? And so sometimes when people come into entrepreneurship, they come into, having their own businesses, the work they're starting is right now, right? And so they have a little bit more of a process than to go through than maybe the next person. And so I think
Sure.
it's important, like, really not to compare yourself and
Yeah.
your journey and your walk with somebody else's. Like, focus on you, focus on, your process, your journey, and just enjoy it, right? Like,
Yeah.
just enjoy it. Go through the trials, go through the tribulations. Like, to me, you have to go through those things. They're not, you can't avoid them. And just know that on the other side of that, you're going to be a different person,
Yeah.
And so I think I see a lot of people, they give up too quickly. And it's sad because as a leader, you see people's potential,
Mm.
right? When they can't see it, and that's unfortunate, but it happens.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that, and that's a word for someone. Like if you're watching this or listening to this today, listen. The same God of the outcome is the same God of the process.
Mm,
And you know this, Bianca, because you've seen this in your life. I've seen this in my life, right? We live in, I'll use a Talladega Nights reference here, shake and bake society. We want it, super fast. But the
hmm
reality is, many times, God uses the process to prepare us and put us in position for the miracle,
that's right.
right?
and
Because a
and
lot of times, if He just gave us the miracle, we would be
yep.
bad stewards of the miracle, right? If He just gave us
Yes.
the outcome right away, we would waste that opportunity to do something with it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's so good. That's basically what I was going to say. It's like, you have to go through a preparation process so that
Yeah,
God can actually prepare you for what he has for you, because if he would give it to you right now, you wouldn't know what to do with it, and you
sure.
may, kind of squander it or
Yeah,
self-destruct or whatever we
yeah.
do. Um, and I think another point that I do want to make is, um, through entrepreneurship and through my success, at some point, my success became my identity, and who I was Bianca, the six-figure income earner, the lady on fire. Like, that's who I had become.
Mm,
And in 2023, I had some things that happened in my business, some big changes,
sure.
and my business kind of took a little dip. I went in a little valley,
Yeah,
and I was like, man, God, like, why is this happening?
sure.
And he showed me that, like, my identity was in the wrong things,
That's good.
and I needed to find my identity in Christ and in the one who created me. And even if I'm not an insurance agent, I'm not an entrepreneur, not a mom, whatever, I am still a daughter of the Most High King.
That's good.
And that was a huge revelation for me. And I see that with a lot of people, like they're searching for their identity in this thing and that thing, and that's why they're always searching, because those things do not give you your identity. And when they're stripped away, you're left with an identity crisis. Like, who am I, right? If I'm not this or that. And that's been something that I've really had to learn too through this journey. where is my identity?
Yeah, and that's so good because I was telling you this before we pushed the record button. My wife and I are former pastors, church planners. We've been in some form of ministry. Now we're in the insurance side. We're on the Medicare side of things. And, when you step away from that and you've been doing that for so long, you don't realize that you made it so much of your identity. Like you didn't probably set out to do that, but in those
Yeah,
seasons, God goes, hey, just because you're not this title or position anymore doesn't make you anything less than my child, right? That's what you're
yeah,
saying. And,
yeah,
and I believe this is a word for someone today, Bianca, because maybe they need to go back to the simplicity that's found in God, that you're
yeah,
just a child, you're just a daughter, I'm just a son of this great big God. And here's the cool thing. It's enough. It's
yeah,
enough just to be a son and a daughter. And
yeah,
Bianca, I tell people this all the time. I wake up every day fully loved and fully accepted by this great God, my heavenly Father. And that's the place that I choose to live from daily in my
yeah.
life. And it sounds like you're doing the same.
Yeah, and it's really, a lot of people are like, man, how do you do what you do? How do you run a business and
Sure,
be a mom and do all this stuff? And I'm like, look, it would not be possible without God. I don't know how I do it. I
sure,
really don't. I
sure.
know that when I wake up in the morning, before I get on a call, before I get on a meeting, before anything, I spend time with God.
That's good.
At least 30 minutes to an hour. Sometimes it turns into 2 hours,
Yeah,
but I have to spend that time getting filled, especially as a leader and as a mom,
yeah,
and all the roles that I play. I have to allow God to fill me so that I have something to actually pour out, because there's nothing worse than trying to pour out from an empty cup. That's a not a really good place to be. And so that I have a
yeah,
very strong prayer life. There's things that I do throughout my day to connect with God, and then at night, I'm recharging myself to
mhm,
wake up and do it all over again. And people don't see that because that's like my personal life.
sure.
But that's definitely, I feel like, really needed, because I wouldn't be able to do it without God's help.
Yeah, and I love that because I think a lot of people in our industry, whether you're in the FE space, Medicare, whatever, it's so sexy to talk about production and success and getting on the big stages. But a lot of times it's boring and it's mundane to talk about the consistency of those daily actions and commitments. And I
Yeah,
was heard you say in one of the podcasts you were on that you said something about let our commitments and our actions dictate how we feel, right? Like even when
yeah,
we don't feel like doing something, that we don't let our feelings run the day. We don't let our
yeah,
feelings run our life, but we let those daily commitments and those daily actions. And I know it's boring to talk about stuff like that, but I love that because
yeah,
I tell people I wouldn't be able to function if I didn't get up early and have my quiet time, right? I got to
yeah,
get it right vertically before I can get it right horizontally,
yeah,
right? And so I
yeah,
love that you're bringing that up because that's really a gold nugget that a lot of people
yeah,
just bypass,
yeah.
right? That they don't make that a consistent thing in their lives. Are you willing to share a little bit more on that? Like maybe there's somebody watching today that goes, I'm thinking about this God thing. I hear you talking about Jesus. You guys sound like you're being over religious on the podcast, but what is something daily, if you're willing to share this, like there's just something simple that someone could put into place starting today that would begin to just compound in their life and bring them closer to God?
Um, so I have a lot of people that come through my agency that,
Mhm.
they're not necessarily believers,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
what they see is like my light that shines,
Yeah.
and to me they want more of that, right? They see like, man, you're full of joy, you're full of peace, you're
Sure.
always praying about things, right? And I see things are going right in your life. And they're like, man, I don't even know like how to pray or like what to
Yeah.
pray. And I remember being in that space when I was
Yep.
in
Me
when I
too.
was in the treatment center. I remember, one of the counselors suggested that I pray about a situation I was struggling with, and I went to my room, and it was awkward and it was uncomfortable, and I just said, God, I'm here. I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
I need help with this. I don't know what to do, and I'm giving it to you. And I didn't know what I was talking to. I didn't know. I had like this idea of God, but I didn't
Yeah.
have a relationship with Him. And so I
Sure.
did the first honest thing that I knew how to do was just talk. you
Yeah.
know, just talk.
Yeah.
Little, I have like at that point in time, I would read like a daily devotional, you
Hmm.
know, and you can get, those really anywhere. They sell them at the gas station now. But just like a daily devotional, and it just starts simple, right? Even if it's for
That's
five
good.
minutes, you're tapping into the spiritual side. Like, even if you're a believer or not believer, there's a spiritual realm right out
Sure.
there. And if you just spend a few minutes each day, right, tapping into that, you can, and that will grow, right? 5 minutes will turn into 10 minutes, will turn into 20 minutes. And I think it's just like it's positive. It's something to really start your
Sure.
day with that's positive.
Yeah.
Being grateful, being thankful for what you have, giving thanks, is something I always start my day with, and really just like a lot of affirmations.
Yeah.
I am, right. Whatever you say after I am is typically what your reality is going to be.
Sure.
And so, you know, a lot of times we just got to retrain our thinking, because we walk around saying, I'm broke, I'm not having success, I'm
Yeah.
this, I'm that. And, like it says, the power of life and death is in your tongue. And
Hmm.
so I think just kind of changing the words that we speak about ourselves. I'm very big on that with the
Yeah.
women that, I mentor. We need to start changing the narrative, right? What we're speaking over our lives, what we're speaking over our businesses, over our situations.
Sure.
Let's start speaking life, and
Yeah.
stop speaking, death and
Sure.
negativity. And you don't have to be necessarily spiritual to know that that's something that you need to do, as compared to not. So now for me, like, over time, that has changed.
Sure.
Now I do speak a lot of scripture, over my
Good.
situation. I use the word of God, and what He's already promised for me. I speak that over myself and my life and my finances and my family, over my children, and that's how I start my mornings.
Yeah. No, that's good because I think sometimes it's this thing of where we talk about God and it's just like such this high spiritual religious thing.
Yeah.
I love what you said. Just start simple, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's just like, hey, thank you, God. And I love God because God's not petty. Like the God
Yeah.
that we serve is not petty, right? And He's close to us, and we don't have to beg Him to be with us. He wants to be with us. He is close to us, and it's just starting simple. And I was talking about this at an event we went to last week in Atlanta, is that I believe in what I would call generational curses, and that's a podcast for another day. But I believe that a lot of times we will never truly create generational wealth until we begin to break those generational curses in our life,
Oh yeah.
right? I
Amen.
believe generational curses will cripple our ultimate calling that God has for us. And so you
Yep.
talked about that healing process. You talked about being inconsistent and speaking life. Every family has generational curses. Yes, if you're watching this today or you're listening to this, your family has them. And it takes a
Hmm.
lot of intentionality. It takes this surrender that Bianca was talking about earlier, that you just got to be so honest with God. And I want to talk to you about this too, Bianca, because I believe the more vulnerable we're willing to be with God and with a trusted community, the more victory we'll have in our
Yeah.
lives. Can you talk about the power of community, not only in your
Yeah.
business, but just even in your spiritual walk? How much of a
Yeah.
difference that's made in your life?
Yeah. I mean, again, I kind of base everything off of like my recovery journey, and kind
Sure,
of what saved my life, and
sure,
the power of community, like just being around other people that are also trying to stay sober and, walk a
sure.
different life. Especially, like, again, remember, I got sober at 21. That's very, very young for a lot of
Yeah,
people. And so finding a community of people that are like-minded, that are walking the same walk. I think that that's very important. So everything that I do, again, that's part of, to me, part of the system, part of the path is getting connected to a community because, you know, you may be in business for yourself as an entrepreneur, but you don't have to be by yourself.
That's right.
Right. And so, when I joined a church, if I just recently joined a new church, the first thing I did was like, hey, do y'all have small groups? Where can I, join a community? It's awkward, but like I have
Yeah.
learned to get out of my comfort zone. I went to this this gathering and I didn't know anybody there and it was super awkward. I sat next to a lady and I started talking to her like I would talk to one of my clients, like, hey, asking questions and I made a friend that day, and
Yeah.
so even with business, like having a community of people of like-minded believers, that you can reach out to because the thing with community is we can't see ourselves, you know sometimes when I'm in a situation, I can't always see, like maybe when I'm
Mm.
messing up or maybe going down the wrong path.
Yeah.
But if I have a community of people that
Yeah.
I'm close with that hold me accountable, those people can see, like, hey, Bianca, you're kind of going a little bit, veering off here. You might need to, bring it back. And that's important to me.
Yeah.
I love accountability, and so I
Yeah.
think community is very, very powerful. I'm one that I like to isolate. I'm a
Yep.
homebody. I like to be by
Yeah.
myself. I get charged up alone, but then I go out to like give and have people kind of pour into me too. So
Yeah, and I love that it's interesting too in regards to our healing journey, how God brings healing through the power of a trusted community,
yeah,
right? And I can't restate this enough if you're listening or watching this today, that your victory is really on the other side of you willing to be vulnerable, right?
yeah,
That transformation that you're seeking is really on the other side of you willing to be transparent. God already knows, right? He wants you to bring it to him, but he already knows. But there is a community out there that's going to love you for you, and it's going to
yeah,
help you grow and help you get to that next level. And I love that. We all have blind spots. That's what you're saying. We all have blind
yeah,
spots, right? And it's not in our DNA to do this thing alone,
yeah,
right? I can't run your race and you can't run my race, but we don't have to run the race alone. That's what
yeah,
I love about what you're saying. A couple of
yeah.
more things as we get ready to wrap up today. You were
Sure.
talking about in one podcast that I was watching you on. You were talking about how you were always a taker at a season in your life, but that
hmm
you had to transition to a giver. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. So, and I guess it's a taker, I was used to be a very selfish individual.
Mm,
I
yeah.
was very entitled because of, I feel like the pain and the trauma that I thought that I had
Mm,
had been through and that the world kind of like owed me something. I was a victim. That's what I was for a very long time.
mm,
And I thought people owed me something. And so I took things from people. I was very selfish. The world kind of revolved around Bianca and my problems
mm,
and my pain and,
yeah.
those types of things. And when I got sober and then, when I got saved, I felt like I needed to start not being so selfish and start really, really giving, because it's like, in the, I would say like the church world, right? You say like you always fight one spirit with the opposite spirit. Well, it's the
Sure.
same thing in the natural world. Like
Yeah.
if you want to stop being selfish, you have to start being selfless. And I
Mm,
knew for me, like my selfishness was like really like the spiritual part of my,
sure.
kind of problem. And so, I started really practicing the opposite and just really started like giving back and that's when I really found I never really knew like my purpose in life. People would be
Yeah.
like, well, what do you want to be like when you grow up, or like, I like never knew. And then when I got
Right.
sober, and part of my sobriety was like learning to like help other people and give back, right, what was given to me. I kind of found my calling and my purpose, and I felt like, my calling is to help other people, like to be of service. And even, since, getting saved, like I know that God has a purpose for me other than just selling insurance or, just being
Sure.
entrepreneur, right? Like he has a purpose for me. And I'm always trying to seek like, God, what is that? What is that purpose? Because I feel like if you don't know what your purpose is on this earth, it's you're kind of just walking around blind, right? You don't really know where you're going. And my why, I actually developed a why around my business, and my why is to really to help people, to self-develop themselves so that they can live a more purpose-filled life. So
Sure.
when God brings people into my business, I feel like he brings them through insurance, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's not always like for insurance.
Sure. I
And
agree.
so, I always like people come to me and they just start like sharing their hearts with me, and I'm like, "Oh Lord," and it's really, I feel like I can help them walk through those things and really like
Yeah.
find their purpose, like walk through the mess. Like let's clear this up first before you can focus on, making six figures. Let's clean up the mess first.
Sure.
Let's find out who you are. What do you want to do? Find out what your why is, and then we can
Sure.
work on that other stuff. And so, that's really important to me. Is I want to help everybody find their purpose, because when I finally found mine, it was like, thank you, Jesus.
Yeah, and speak to that person real quickly. That when when this podcast drops, speak to that person who's stuck in the victim mindset right now, right? And I want to be very
Yeah,
clear. I didn't have the greatest childhood either. Had some things happen to me. I'm not discounting what people are going through
yeah,
whatsoever. There's people that have been through some egregious things,
yeah,
but we either have to wave the white flag of surrender and say, okay, God, I'm going to give it to you and you do with it what I could never do with it. But just somebody right now who's listening to this today going, I love this story, Bianca. I hear what you're saying, but it's just hard for me to break out of that victim mindset. Can you just speak some
yeah.
life into that person real quickly?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like you get to a point where it's like, again, the pain of remaining the same needs to
Yeah.
outweigh the fear of change. And you
Mm,
have to get to a point where, again, being a victim, it's not working. For me,
yeah.
it wasn't working. It wasn't serving me any good. If
Yeah.
anything, it was causing me more harm. And so I
Yeah.
had to make a decision to let go of unforgiveness,
Yeah.
let go of bitterness, right? Because that's what I
Yeah.
was really holding on to, was just unforgiveness. And
Yeah.
I had to start forgiving people that had hurt me in the
Mm,
past, you
yeah.
know? And it was just it wasn't like I had to go somewhere to do it. It was like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like God just kind of spoke to me, and I just had to start forgiving. I forgive this person. I forgive this person for what they did to me. And through doing that, right, there was like something that happened in doing that that kind of broke off that victim mentality. And you know what I started doing? There was a person in my life that it was really hard for me to forgive them. And what I did every day for 2 weeks, I prayed for that person. I said, God,
Mm,
I pray that they have everything in life that they want.
yeah.
I pray that, you be with them, you touch their heart, you touch their spirit, it just started praying for that person. And not that I necessarily wanted to, but I knew
Sure.
that I had to do something different, because again, what I was
Yeah.
doing wasn't, and that was suggested to me, hey, pray for this person every day for 2 weeks and watch what happens. And that person was actually my dad, you know, and he ended up a couple months later, came to me and made amends to me, you
Mm,
know and our relationship changed, and it's just like, wow, like just in doing that one little thing, how
sure.
that can that can change the trajectory of where you're going. And
Yeah.
so, I just, anybody that may be struggling with that, again, you have to make a decision. You have to
Yeah.
make a decision
Good.
that you're sick and tired of being sick and tired of doing the same thing, expecting a different result, and that
Yeah.
it's time to do something different. And it just starts with little bitty things. Change is just like one little, and then doing those little bitty things over time, then you start seeing, the bigger picture. But it just started with that one thing for me. And just doing these little bitty things every day over a period of time, that now I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. I'm a warrior, right? And my past does not define me.
Yeah.
It makes me who I am, but it's not, it isn't what I am, right?
Sure.
And so I hope that
Yeah.
that encourages somebody.
Yeah, no, you're spitting some fire. Now I was looking for the offering play. I don't know if we were passing around to an altar call, what was going on here, but spitting some serious fire there. I love it. And
Yeah.
listen, once again, you have a choice today, right? And am I going to be held hostage by unforgiveness, bitterness, this victim mindset another year? Because it's going to go by whether we like it or not, but it's your decision. This is what Bianca's telling us today. It's your decision on whether you're going to let it cripple you again one more year, or whether you're going to cut that thing off, break free from that, and go live the life that your creator has for you. So I definitely love that. I ask everybody that comes this on the podcast, if there was one word you could use to describe Bianca, what would that one word be?
Warrior.
Warrior. Okay,
Warrior.
so let's go to part B of that question. How has that warrior spirit
Hmm.
contributed to the Bianca we're talking to on the podcast today?
I think it's just like I'm a fighter, and like I said, I'm a warrior. I'm a survivor. I'm not a victim. And when I get knocked down, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. Like, I am going to continue to get up and continue to keep pushing forward, right? And there's not going to be anything that's going to get me down. Because again, I know that God didn't bring me this far through
Yeah.
everything that I went through. He didn't bring me this far for me to just give up,
Come on.
you know?
That's right. Yeah.
And and to me that's, and not to say that, people have to go through those types of things to
Sure. Yeah.
have that fighting spirit, but it
Yeah.
definitely does, I feel like, help, because if you can make it through that, it's like even my worst day today is better than my worst day where I was 11 years ago, you
Sure.
know? So it's like, if I can get through that, I can get through anything. And that's just the mindset that I have to have too. And being a single mom,
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I'm about to be engaged, but my fiance, he's living in a different state right now. So I'm still doing this on my own. Um, you know, there's no option to give up. My children, they depend on me. They depend on
Yeah.
me, and they want to see me wake up every morning and say, "Okay, let's go, let's do this," right?
Yeah.
And I don't want them to see me give up. Right now,
Mm,
granted, I'll
good.
make mistakes. I might get knocked down, but they will not see me give up. And, a lot of people I see will like use their children as excuses. I use my kids as reasons to
That's good.
continue to push forward. They are my why.
Yeah.
They are who they are my number one ministry before anything else is my
Sure.
kids. And I want to make sure that I'm being the best example for them, that I can be. So,
Yeah. No, I definitely love that. And before I ask you where we can find you and people can connect with you online, is there anything else like you just go, there's something in my spirit that's just, I just need to share because most people that watch this podcast are in some type of entrepreneur space. Obviously I interview a lot of people in the insurance space because I'm in the
mhm.
insurance space, but I mean, I've interviewed pastors, I mean, other entrepreneurs in different spaces as well. Is there anything that maybe somebody out there today is just, they're this close to just taking that risk, taking that bet on themselves? Is there anything that you go, I just want to just speak life into them before we close today?
Yeah. I mean, realistically, simply put, like, if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
If Rob can do it, you can do it, right?
Yeah.
Take somebody that you see that is having the success, right? That is where you would like to be, and model that person. Model what they're doing, and you can get the same result. And like I said earlier, don't focus so much on the fruit.
Yeah.
Focus on your root, right? If
Yeah.
you're not where you want to be, instead of focusing on like, is it this, that, maybe
Yeah.
do some internal reflection.
Sure.
Is it me? Right? Is there something that I need to change? Because I think sometimes, and I've done this myself, is I'm looking at everything external and I'm blaming this and I'm blaming that and
Yep.
that. And I'm trying to
Yep.
change all these external things when really I need to take full responsibility for where I'm at right here, right now. It's nobody else's fault but my own. Okay. We could say it, but I just take total responsibility. This is where I'm at. What do I need to do today to make that change? And I'm responsible for where I'm at, my success, what happens, you know? And I think that's like kind of my message to everybody today. Stop looking at everything outside or
Sure.
blaming everything outside, and just take
Yeah.
total responsibility for where you're at right now today. And what are you going to do differently to change?
Yeah. No, and I love that. And I'll just shorten it by saying this more bluntly to those listening or
Yeah.
watching. Your blaming is blocking your blessings,
Yes.
right?
That's good.
Everybody wants the blessing, but you can't have the blessings until you're willing to release the blaming,
Yeah. That's
right? And you
good.
can't release the blaming until you surrender to your creator and let him heal that what's
Yeah.
inside of you that's causing you to blame everybody else for where your life is.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Amen.
So, I mean, and I know that's a hard word, but that's part of being in a community, Bianca. Like,
Yeah.
we've all had some of those hard words, that
Yeah.
people have, that God has put people in our lives to speak to us that way, but we needed it. Right. And I
Yeah.
just feel like I need to say this too. It's a lot easier to forgive, ladies and gentlemen, when you realize you've been both not only the person that's been offended, but you've also been the offender at seasons in your life.
Yeah. No,
A
that's
lot
good.
easier to forgive when you realize you've been both the offended and the offender. That's really what changed it for me.
Yeah.
I was able to release things when I go, man, I've really made a lot of people mad and done some shady, sketchy things in my life at
Mm-hmm.
times. I'm willing to be that honest and vulnerable about it
Yeah.
because I know it's under
Yeah.
the blood and God has healed that and taken care of that. So
Yeah.
thank you for
Yeah.
being so generous with your time today and sharing with our audience here. Where
Yeah.
can we find you? Maybe somebody wants to connect with you on the business side because I know that you have the business side, but what if somebody just goes, man, I love what Bianca's saying and I just really need to connect with her. What's the
Yeah.
easiest way to do that?
So you can find me on Facebook at just type in Bianca Menard. You can find me on there. Send me a message. On Instagram, I am Bianca Menard. Same thing on TikTok or what have you. Just send me a message. I am completely like, I have people that message me, even from different businesses, people that aren't even on my team, and they're like, hey, I need some help. And I'm totally willing to be able to. That's just the type of person that I am. If you just need somebody to talk to, need somebody to pray with you,
Yeah.
need somebody to give you a word, and I just want to share this, like a word that I got for 2024 that I spoke out at the conference was, the best is yet to come.
Mm,
And that's what the Lord spoke to me. The best is yet to
come
come.
on.
So wherever you're at right now, you haven't even seen the best yet. You could think you're way up here, but God has more for you, and the best is yet to come.
Yeah. And his best for us is better than we could ever imagine. That's what I love
Amen.
about God, right?
Amen.
His
Amen.
best is better for us. Well, definitely
Yep.
love your spirit, love
Thank
your
you.
passion. And listen, guys, the reason we do this podcast and we interview people like Bianca is because we believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. But more importantly, there's a God who believes in you even
Mm-hmm.
when you can't believe in yourself in this season.
Amen.
And what I
Amen.
love about it is just simple as taking that first step of surrender
Yep.
and saying, God, here's my life. Here's the keys to the kingdom. Would you do something with all this mess?
Yep.
Because this mess is what I've created, but would you do a miracle in the middle of all this mess? Please take a moment to like, comment, subscribe, share this message of Bianca that she shared with us today with someone who needs to hear this. And I'll just close by saying this: God bless you guys and
Mm-hmm.
go live a life on purpose.